Griffiths, and we've got Gordon Mitchell. And if anyone can set the standard for a 20-minute talk, it is going to be these two. No pressure, guys. And that's what they're going to be talking about. 20 minutes of standards. Yes.
Firstly, good afternoon. Get you really excited about standards just before lunch. Good for the blood sugar. So bear with us. The plan, Mark Griffiths, I've been in and around this industry for as long as nearly everyone else. Listening to this morning, so 30-odd years doing this, and recognise a lot of the things that's been spoken about. As I describe it, when I had a proper job, I was ops director for an FM provider, stretched into doing consultancy 6 months before a pandemic, which worked out in the end, so it was okay. Recently taken over as chair of one of the BSI committees for FM standards, and this is Gordon. I'll let you do yours.
Gordon Mitchell, co-founder of WHOLUS. I'm also, as with Mark, chair in BSI, also convene as SEN and convene with ISO around digital data and technology standards, and just taken up vice chair role with NEMA and the National Information Management Association.
So we do a lot together on technology as well, but to answer a question that was asked to me, so you're talking about data and AI? No, I'm not. So standards, they're a lifeblood of what we're about in the industry, and I think the FM standards are very undervalued in what we do at the moment. And part of my remit for this strategic group is to try and raise the profile of those standards, getting them spoken about more openly in the sector. They align with lots of the other things that we've already spoken about this morning, and hopefully this will give you a flavour of where we are with that. So, bit of an interactive time now. Who's inputted to any of the standards in FM through the BSI in the last 10 years? I can't look over there, I know that's happened.
Not on the stage.
Not on stage, yeah.
Yeah.
Not many, no. So, not a surprise. Who knows about the standards? Are people using the standards? Good, thank you. We're getting there. But what we want to talk about today is how they can help us navigate all the things we've heard about today: AI, sustainability, leadership, strategy, but not theory, but from a practical perspective. And a lot of the people here are practitioners and leaders in the industry, and that's what we want to be focusing on. When people hear standards, they sometimes think paperwork, bureaucracy, but from our perspective, and what the standards are really intending to do is help FM teams manage change in a structured way. They give us a lot of shared definitions. Clients, FM teams, suppliers, they're all talking about the same thing. And they help us with that risk management, compliance. We know how important that is. Which matters when you're explaining the decisions to senior leaders, auditors, and the like. And they do lend to that continuous improvement. This isn't on about, similar to Steve, I do some training here and there, and one of my favourite phrases, the people I've done training with in the past, and also clients now, 7 most expensive words in business. We've always done it that way. We hear it so much. We always want to, oh yeah, we've always done it like that. We've got to change. I think we've realised that change is around us, and I think we've got to embrace it a lot more. And if we can embrace that and not rely on those individual local workarounds that we've all experienced, some of us have delivered, I'll be guilty of that in the past and in previous times in my career, then I think that will help us hugely. So just to give you a little flavour of where we are, I sit on FMB1, that's the strategic committee for FM standards, and not one into titles and all of that business, so bear with me while I roll my own eyes about that role, but it is important. We want to engage with industry, we want to engage with government about the importance of FM. We've all heard a lot of the headlines about the GDP, how much of that in FM. There's lots of different numbers that get bandied around, which I'd be interested to talk to some of you about later. But it's billions of pounds in the sector and where we are and what we do. And we're also connected in that kind of ecosystem within the standards world around working with construction, asset management, workplace design. And it's not, and they reflect the reality of what's going on. It's not sitting in isolation anymore. So there's a lot that goes on there, and we can influence those procurement expectations. We can look at those shaping the client's requirements and informing those future norms. I think as Lucy alluded to earlier in the early Q&A, you know, there's a different way of doing these things. We can be at the front of that and help do that in a controlled way that drives things forward. And the other group that I've been involved with for, 10, 12 years now on and off, FMW1, both of these groups, as Sarah mentioned earlier, Stan Mitchell headed up a long time ago and has really driven this along with people like Brian Atkin and others to really get this front and centre in the industry for quite a while, and not just UK-wide, but Europe-wide, worldwide now. This is where the real work happens. You know, this is where the drafting and the technical development really comes together for FM standards. It's the group that drafts and maintains those standards across British, European and national levels. So Nick Blake, who a lot of you will know, heads that group up. And it covers everything that we all see and deal with daily in FM. You know, maintenance, performance measurement, workplace strategy, digital transformation is huge now in that space. And where we go is space utilisation. And so there's huge amounts going on. I'll hand over to Gordon in a moment around information management in FM, which is massive. Lots of people have heard me bore them to death about data and what that can do for the sector, and I'll continue to do that. But all those soft landings, all of that can directly affect how effective and efficient FM workplace can be. But it's all around practical frameworks, tweaking in, reducing everything there to really drive that forward. And I think it's highlighted in the agenda for the conference today, FM is at a crossroads. And there's always been that tension between cost and assurance. And that's probably as heightened now as it's ever been, if not more so. Technology, you've got automation, you've got data, you've got analytics, all driving what we do. My personal view on that is we're just not embracing data enough, the rest of it will follow, which I think mirrors probably what you were saying earlier, Steve. ESG, all those things that Sunil was touching on just now, they're massive for us all now. And let's be honest about it, if we can get that right, you can tap into money. If you can tap into money, you can oil the wheels of the industry and get it flowing. And I don't think we're thinking about that enough. And we've got all the workshop and leadership, the workforce, and leadership challenges that we all face in the industry. And all of this can be underpinned by the standards, and they give us that governance and structure. And you can move forward with a lot more confidence and a lot less guesswork. So we think that that's why we want to raise the profile of these, talk about them a lot more, and drive it forward. I'll hand up to you there again, mate.
Thanks, Mark. So I think we've heard a lot of the big questions already that are facing all of us. I think if you look at these aspects, one of the things that I see quite a lot is how much of a comprehension do you have around digital agnostic to tech? Quite a lot of the time there's a convolution there between tech and digital are one and the same, but they're completely not. So I spend a lot of my time trying to get the digital into the operating model, which then means the tech can meet it in the middle. So I think starting to think more about how digitally literate are our people, how digitally sound are our processes, get into the basic fundamentals across the operating model and its digital capabilities will then probably mean, I mean, we've spoke about IWFM, where I'm the chair of the technology SIG there, that we did a report about innovative projects in FM and 80% failed to deliver ROI. That's a crazy, crazy statistic. You know, 4 out of 5 fail to deliver ROI. And that to me is the reason, because I've been doing tech and FM for decades now. I architected a smart building back in 2014 and believed I was 3 or 4 years away from stopping consulting. And now I don't think I'm going to ever stop consulting, to be honest. So I think these are the things I think we need to reflect on. What does that digital capability look like? Forget the tech. That will come and it will help. But if you can't answer those questions, then you're not going to get your return. And if you do 3 or 4 failing to ROI projects, then your CFO starts to hide from you. So I think, Anthropic have been quite good as an AI firm in terms of reporting on their AI and testing it. One of the statistics I found terrifying is one of the tests they do is they leak in a test environment to their models information that they're going to get turned off. And their model decided to then leverage its accessibility into the corporate environment, and it knew the engineer who had been emailed to turn it off. It checked through that engineer's email history, found that they were having an affair, and then blackmailed them into not turning them off. So that's the kind of world that we're dealing with. It's very, very different to things like BIM and IoT, which don't have this generative capability. But if you're not nailing your AI down, whether it's ISO standards, British standards, or your own standards, doesn't matter. But your risk is growing. I've often said, if you invested in BIM and it didn't work, it was a failed investment. If you invest in AI and it doesn't work, it could be a hallucinating risk waiting around the corner like a multi-headed hydra. So this is where standards become really important. As Mark said, it's not administrative. It's a bit like if you think of your car, standards in that regard are, I have a diesel car, putting petrol in it isn't an administrative kind of complexity, it's going to break. So the standards are there to, as much as anything, I think there was I forget the name of the firm, but one of the firms took their entire customer service out and replaced it with AI, saved them, I think it was 60 million. Great commercial kind of bottom line proof. The complaints went through the roof. The emotional intelligence, the human touch, completely undermined it, and they had to go and rehire all their human resources again. But one of the things that really came out of that exercise was their organizational ethos, what they stood for, why they were, going back to, I think it was Steve said about the why, was that when they let the AI loose, they had the models, they had their own instruction, knowledge base, graph, whatever. They realized that they hadn't quantified the intent properly. So the AI actually, in a very, very disastrous experiment, you could call it, the AI actually showed them that they hadn't modeled through their intent properly into their organizational infrastructure. So the AI just acted on, obviously, what it was given to act upon, but that then taught them that actually the cascading of what their organization brand position should look like wasn't actually structured well enough, because the AI proved to them that that intent wasn't delivered through the life cycle of its function. We've talked about this kind of human-machine scenario that's coming up. We can't lose sight of the human element. We've got to really look at, what does that new version of us look like? I would like to think that AI can liberate us, can take a lot of the admin away from us, let us focus on that human touch, that value add, the bits that quite often now in FM we don't have the time for because we're spinning 300 plates and I can't, pivot to do anything different. So I think, again, I go back to the digital operating model. What does this digital viewpoint look like? How do we refine? How do we reallocate? How do we bring the purpose and the intent more into our everydays? And in that way, the AI will clearly, along with other things, serve a purpose, but it will then be the purpose, not some hallucinated variable there within. And why does data standards matter? To give you an idea, and I know we are going to keep to our 20 minutes, but at the moment, FM internationally is working on 4 concurrent standards just now. I'm liaison with BIM at international level and AI, so I get to see all the works in both camps. And at the moment, BIM is working on 12 international standards, so 4 times what we're working on. AI is working on 47. It's completely growing arms and legs left, right and centre. But this is where the standards really matter. You do not want to be getting blackmailed by your systems. So these are the bits where it does, BIM and ISO 19650 is about to come out for public consultation, so everyone who hasn't put their hand up, all of you, can maybe get involved and understand what's coming down the line there. The 19650 review is basically going to this point of trying to look at, we've had 5 years of ISO 19650 information management at international level. So it's getting to a point of its first iteration of maturity and review. But the important thing, and why I would advocate all of us, we've said, what is FM? What can it be? That's one to feed into. That's the life cycle of information. FM presides over 72% of the life cycle value of information, and we've hardly got any representation in that conversation. So is it any wonder that when it comes to us that it's not fit for us? And in practice, I think it's just about that ability for you to cascade what you think in a strategic concept all the way through to the end transactions. We do deal with a broad church, so there's many moving parts. The standards give you that glue, that dot joining that was spoken of earlier that helps bring all these things together. And I think the final one that I'm going to talk on is it is with us. It's in our ask, it's within our reach to shape our future. I have no doubt about that at all. But that means we need to step up and be counted. At the moment, I think, and it was spoken of earlier on as well, FM's got a bad press. It's not bogs, bricks and boilers. It's very much ESG custodian. It's looking around this. The way I see it, slightly pivoting from your very nice city planning analogy, is I see FM as the future of FM is like a conductor of a digital symphony. We're going to have all these tools that are doing all these things, but if you don't have the rhythm, you don't have the flow, then it's a cacophony of noise. We need to be there to bring that coherence and therefore deliver that value into our everyday.
I'm trying to renegotiate my KPI for an extra minute, but I'll see where I go. So I think what we're after from all of you is more engagement and more contribution. This is not a closed shop. We want a more diverse group in the standards world. We want people to engage with the standards more. They've got a lot to offer. And there is a common thread in the way that it all works under the built environment umbrella, where all of the standards that you're hearing about, things like the Building Safety Act, all these other things that are really going to impact on us practically for those of us in any high-rise accommodation and the like, it really helps join the dots. But it's not going to stifle innovation. It's not going to make it bureaucratic. It can make you more agile. It can lead to better decision-making by the right people at the right level, going back to the point that Steve made earlier. And I agree wholeheartedly with a lot of what Steve was saying. Now, I come from a similar background. I was actually a YTS, there you go, that's how old I am. And went through that whole range of learning, done my master's in FM when I was 32 or whatever it was. But all of this can help really drive what we're doing and make FM become more and more strategic. And if there's one takeaway we'd like you to take about standards today, it's this, that they'll help FMs deliver today while staying ready for what's next. We don't always know what that is. We've got a good idea. But it's changed a lot in the last 4 or 5 years, and I think it's going to continue at that pace for a while. So,
it'll help us make FM be seen as a value partner, not a cost centre. That's our main drive within standards.
And thank you very much. Thank you. Cheers.